Hello, I'm Cindy.
I'm Iliana.
I'm Tharushi.
Today we are going to predict the exchange rate that we choose in the upcoming months based on several determinants of the historical data. The exchange rate that we choose is between Australian dollar to US dollar. The first determinant that we choose is inflation rate. We got the data from the Reserve Bank of Australia about the customer price index in Australia. In 2017 on September, the customer price index is 1.8%, and then there's an increase of 0.1% to 1.9% on December 2017. While for United States, the data that we got from the US Bureau of Labor, the customer price index on 2017 September was to 2.2%, and then it decreased of 0.1% to 2.1% on December 2017. So, as we can see on the graph, Australia has higher inflation rate than United States. From the CPI historical data, we can conclude that exports from Australia will be more expensive, and then there will be less demand for export, and therefore there will also be less demand of Australian dollar. While as the imports to Australia will be cheaper, there will be more demand for imports and therefore more supply of Australian dollar. From there, we can conclude that the exchange rate of Australian dollar will depreciate against US dollar.
Moving on to the second determinant, which is the economic growth rate. As we can see here on the graph, according to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the GDP growth rate in 2017 is fluctuating throughout the year. It went down to 0.5% in the first month from 0.9%, and then it rose again to 0.8% at July, and finally it kept falling down to the lowest point, which was in 0.4%. Overall, there was a loss of approximately half point from the first quarter to the last quarter. When comparing to the United States, their growth rate was relatively higher than the Australian. According to the US Bureau of Economic Analysis, it started from 1.2% in the first quarter, then it increased to 3.1% in the second quarter, and it decreased to 2.9%. Overall, there was a change of 1.7%. And because of the US GDP growth rate is higher than the Australian, it creates the demand for AUD lower than USD. The supply of the AUD will be higher than the USD. Therefore, the Australian dollar will depreciate against US dollar.
So the third determinant we chose was interest rates. So nominal interest rate sits at 1.5% according to the RBA in 2018 for Australia. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the inflation rate for Australia is quite high, therefore influencing the nominal interest rate to be also high. This will lead to capital outflow, and the Australian dollar will therefore depreciate against the US dollar. Statistics given to us by the Balance 2018, the nominal interest rate for the US sits at 1.75%. Due to the high real interest rate, the US dollar will appreciate against the Australian dollar. So as the nominal interest rate is high with more inflation factor, therefore it encourages the capital outflow, as we can see in the graph. There is an increased supply of Australian dollar and the supply curve will shift to the right. There is a decrease in demand for Australian dollar as a result of the discourage in capital inflow, and the demand supply curve will therefore shift to the left. In that way, we can summarize that the Australian dollar exchange rate will depreciate against the US dollar.
So based on our chosen three determinants, which are inflation rate, economic growth, and interest rate, we conclude that the Australian dollar will depreciate against the US dollar in the upcoming months.
That's all for our presentation. I'm Tharushi.
I'm Iliana.
And I'm Cindy. Thank you for your attention.